California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. So good to see you this morning. It is Tuesday, May 6th, and this is the Bill Press Show. We are here in your nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where there is lots going on at the Supreme Court, at the White House, in the Congress. We'll tell you all about it, tell you what's going on around the country and around the globe as well, and most importantly, then kick back and let you take off and sound off on the issues of the day. You can do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. We are always happy to hear from you. Yesterday, President Obama held a reception yesterday evening at the White House. Vice President Joe Biden having a big breakfast celebration at the Naval Observatory, all in honor of Cinco de Mayo, and both of them made the point the real way to celebrate Cinco de Mayo is to pass comprehensive immigration reform and to do it this year. Meanwhile, John Boehner moving ahead with plans to establish a special House committee to investigate Benghazi, even though there have already been 13 hearings so far by 5 different committees on Benghazi. Democrats under the minority leader Steny Hoyer has said that they oppose this plan and may not even appoint any Democrats to serve on it. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court yesterday moved to tear down the wall of separation between church and state by saying it's okay for a city or a county or a state legislature to open up its meetings with a Christian prayer. They said it's just like the Pledge of Allegiance. No, it's not. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more again. And take your calls at 866-55-PRESS today, Tuesday, on The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Boehner appoints a special committee to investigate Benghazi. Boy, next thing you know, they'll vote to repeal Obamacare. Oh, that's right. They've already done that over 50 times. Hey, what do you say? Good morning, everybody. Here we are. It is Tuesday, May 6th. Can you believe it? Rolling right along to the spring into summer. Lots to talk about this morning. So it's good to see you there on the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning. Good to see you on your local progressive talk radio station, whether you're at home, already at work, or in the car on the way to work. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us on Free Speech TV all around the country. If you have a satellite dish, of course, you can find us on the Dish Network or on Direct TV, and more of you do every day. And more of you find us around the globe on our video stream, for which we are most grateful. Wherever you happen to be, hello, let's see, this morning, hello, Peru, right? Why not? South America today, okay? Anywhere on the globe, you can find us at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Peter Ogburn, heard from him yesterday down at the Acme Oyster Bar in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, you heard from him.
Yeah, right. Eat your heart out. He sent me a picture of a beautiful plate of olives. Of oysters. And just wanting to rub it in. At
So
any rate.
cruel.
Still on vacation. He'll be back a little bit later in the week. Elisa Murphy here, in charge of the team this morning.
Hey.
And has been for the last few days. Elisa,
Good morning.
With Alicia Cruz. Never gets a day off. She's there on the phones, ready to take your calls. Don't forget, at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, he almost never gets a day off either. Well, once in a while he does. When Monty comes in. But anyway,
That's
Cyprian on the job this morning. And we're all celebrating the Wizards. How about it? The first game of the second round. Hey, really hot stuff. Yesterday, beating the Pacers on the Pacers' home court. Wow, which was really incredible. Their final score, 102-96. So it's 1-0 with 3 to go. Huh?
Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah. 1-0 with 3 to go. And, some people never thought they get through the first round against the Bulls. Now they're up 1 against the Pacers. So, go, Wizards, go. Meanwhile, the other news, I'm just still hearing little ripples from the Donald Sterling, because the owners have yet to meet to vote Donald Sterling out of the NBA. But in the meantime, Barbara Waters snagged the big get of the year by doing an interview with the girlfriend, V. Stifiano, who is still seeing Donald Sterling and defending him somewhat, even though she released the audio tapes, which meant that he lost everything. And he should have lost everything because he's a racist pig. So Barbara Waters gets to interview the girlfriend. She doesn't get to interview Donald Sterling, however. She tries, but she just said she couldn't land him. Here's Barbara Waters complaining about it and explaining what happened on The View yesterday.
But I think the relationship is unsteady, even while we were there, because he was going to do an interview, then he didn't, then he did. He went from caring about her to calling her names. He wouldn't do the interview. He wouldn't do. So it's very erratic. It's hard to pin down.
Hard to pin down. Yes, indeed. Donald Sterling. What a loser. Boy, what a big day today. Today, all right, here, let's put it in perspective. Today is such a big day that we have to have 2 different Friends of Bill today. First time in history we've had to have
Really?
2
That's the first time.
in one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 2 Friends of Bill. Olivier Knox from Yahoo News will be here in the next hour, second hour, as a friend of Bill. And then Elahe Izadi from the National Journal will be here as a friend of Bill in our third hour. Of course, it's Tuesday, so Arthur Delaney will be along from HuffPost and Igor Volsky from Think Progress. All of that coming up, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed, just one little story here in our abbreviated Full Court Press for today. You know that Rand Paul is leading the fight in the United States Congress against drones, raising questions about drones. He is holding up the nomination of David Barron, a judicial nominee of President Obama, because Barron is the one who wrote the memo saying it's okay to use drones to kill Americans on foreign soil. Now, the next step against drones, I don't know whether Rand Paul has anything to do with this or not, but it was announced yesterday that Yosemite National Park has banned drones.
Wow.
All right. This is a good step. But what's interesting is I wonder if the White House knew that Yosemite was going to ban drones. It sort of goes against national policy. At any rate, the National Park Service announced yesterday that visitors to Yosemite National Park are not allowed to bring their own drones with them. They say that there's been actually an increase in the number of people bringing drones in for filming purposes.
Oh, okay.
but that they create a fair amount of noise. They interfere with emergency rescue operations, and they can disturb wildlife like birds that nest on cliff walls. So for all those good reasons, Yosemite has said no drones.
Yeah, because that could really damper a day out in Yosemite if you're trying to check out the scenery, and here comes some drones.
You're out in the middle of this beautiful, beautiful wilderness area, and here's this freaking drone flying over you. No. Good move. I hope that other national parks, maybe even the Point Reyes National Seashore, where I live in California, will do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Okay. Well, a lot of big news yesterday in Washington, D.C., but the story that really caught my attention, I wanted to get your take on this morning, is the Supreme Court. I mean, look, most of the time they just get it wrong. We celebrated last week when they made a good decision on climate change, a good decision on the EPA, but that was a 6-2 decision. Most of the time their decisions are 5-4 the wrong way, and that was the case yesterday with their decision on prayer in public meetings. The Supreme Court considered a case up in the little town of Greece, New York, where the town of Greece had a policy that before their city council meeting, so here it is, you've got everybody all there ready for business, city council up at the behind the bench. And then you've got the people from the staff of the town, and then the people from the town who are there for that day's business. But before they start their city council meeting, the first thing they do is they invite the chaplain of the month. They appoint a different chaplain every month. The chaplain of the month comes in and opens the meeting with a prayer. Some residents of Greece have said this is wrong. We shouldn't have to sit there for prayer. We are non-believers or we are non-Christians. Why should we have to put up with this? They appealed. They sued and won, and the city appealed, and it's come all the way to the Supreme Court. And yesterday, the justices ruled 5-4 that, hey, it's okay to open a city council meeting with a prayer in Greece, New York, and by extension, it's okay to do so, of course, in every city in America, in every county supervisor's meeting, or in every state legislative meeting. The court did not change its previous ruling that it's not okay to start the school day with a prayer. Now, that's the first thing that makes you wonder, like, what the hell were they doing? I mean, because they say you can't start the school day with a prayer because these are all kids and you might teach them the wrong thing. Well, there could be kids at the city council meeting too. And if it's wrong in school, why is it okay in a city council? It doesn't make any sense to me, if you ask me. But Justice Kennedy, remember, he's sort of the swing vote that people count on, right? Our hope is based on a guy like Justice Anthony Kennedy. He said, here's his reasoning, okay? He said, first of all, well, this is okay because there's nothing wrong with this. This is just tradition. What? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, slavery used to be tradition, right? We wouldn't let blacks drink the same water fountain. That was a tradition for a long time. I mean, just because they've always done it doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's constitutional. There's still a lot of stuff we do by tradition that is wrong. Justice Kennedy said, people pointed out, well, all these pastors have been Christians because there's no other church other than a Christian church. There are a lot of churches in Greece, but they're all Christian churches. And so he says, so what? We can't have people we would have people from other faiths, but there aren't any there. Therefore, there won't be a rabbi or there won't be a Hindu whatever, right? Or a Muslim imam. No. They'll all be Christians. And Kennedy said, well, that's because there are only Christian churches there. But that does mean people of any other faith or non-believers are always going to feel like outcasts at these meetings because they're going to be all Christian prayers. It's again like saying this is a Christian country, which is not, and you have to be a Christian to be an American, which you don't. It's really mixing up the two. I mean, his thinking is so wrong-headed in this stuff. Kennedy also said in his majority opinion, well, this is no big deal. This is just like opening a meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. No, it's not. I mean, you don't have to be graduate from law school to see that. What's wrong with that? I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance, right, is to the flag of the United States of America, to which we all belong. A prayer is to the Christian God that not all people may believe in. It's a huge difference between a prayer to Jesus and the Pledge of Allegiance. And finally, Kennedy says, well, if you don't like it, you can always walk out. Oh, this is great. Yeah. I mean, this is what America is all about, right? Like it or love it or leave it, right? Yeah. You can always walk out. What does that make you feel like? If you're there in the city council with your friends and your fellow townsmen, and they start with a prayer, and you get up and walk out until it's over, and then you come back in, you don't think that, gets people talking about you? It's an outrageous decision. Daniel Mack of the ACLU was there yesterday, who said, for those who believe in civil liberties and the separation of church and state, bad news.
We're disappointed in today's decision. No one should be treated like a second-class citizen by their local government, and we think that's what was going on here.
Yep. Those people who are non-believers, who happen not to be Christians, treated as second-class citizens. Daniel Mack also pointing out, and this is important, but it is a contradiction. This does not apply, doesn't change anything when it comes to schools.
School-sponsored prayer is still off limits before and after this decision, and the decision goes out of its way to distinguish this sort of situation in a town council meeting from the school's context.
And Professor Adam Winkler from UCLA pointed out yesterday that what this really does is a huge win for the religious right, who have been looking, the same people wanted to put that statue to the Ten Commandments down in the Alabama state legislature. They look for all these ways, to try to enforce the notion that we are a Christian nation. And this is, for them, a big win.
The ruling is an important one because the court has shown traditionally great reluctance about religion in public life. But this court is creating new opportunities and new space for religious believers to express themselves.
So here it is. This is another chink in the wall of the separation of church and state, which is one of the fundamental principles on which this country is based and is founded. And one of the reasons that separation of church and state, why religion actually has thrived in this country, because government has been forced by the Constitution to stay out of it. But when you flip the tables and let other people force their religion on everybody else, we are in trouble, I believe. How about you? 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77-377. Just one other final point. The 5 justices who ruled in the majority are all Catholics. 3 out of the 4 in the minority are Jews. The other one is Sonia Sotomayor, who happens to be a thinking Catholic. But to me, this really strikes me as the Christians forcing their religion on the Jews. Christians, Catholics versus the Jews, and the Christians won. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed from my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, a lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. I wonder if the Supreme Court would, how they would rule on starting every Bill Press Show with a prayer. All right? Instead of the, when Peter gets back, we're going to start this. Instead of the full court press, we're going to start with a prayer. To Jesus, Christian prayer every morning. No room for Jews or Muslims or Hindus or non-believers or atheists. No. No, none of that. No. Got to be Christian prayer, says the Supreme Court. This is a bad decision, goes in the wrong direction, and I'll bet you that they will soon come around and allow prayer in public school again, because the two of them are totally inconsistent. You can't have one without the other. And of course, I know they start the session of Congress. They start Congress with a prayer every day too, which is also wrong, and that ought to end. Ralph is calling up in Boston, Mass. Hi, Ralph. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. I totally agree. I think this is just offensive. The ruling attacks not only Jewish people, but all free thinkers in America. It's just, there's no room for it.
No, and I don't get it these days. I mean, I thought we'd move beyond this, but clearly when you have these 5 Catholics saying, damn right, we can have a Christian prayer at the beginning of every school meeting,
Have they been to Catholic church lately? It is the most oppressive thing. I'm a Catholic. I was raised 13 years, confirmed, from cradle to grave Catholic, but I've changed, and it's not easy, and it's almost, it binds you, it ties you up, and people just have to, I thought we'd come further than this.
I did too, Ralph. It's good to hear from you. It's, at the very least, it makes people there who are non-believers or non-Catholics or non-Christians uncomfortable, and that is not what should happen at a city council meeting. Quickly, Patty from Yuma, Arizona. Hi, Patty.
Hi. While I was on hold, I heard you then say a Christian prayer, which I didn't hear before.
Yes.
And I was going to say, well, what happens in other towns where there are different religions? How do you decide? This is just going to be a mess. How do you decide who gets to be the one to do the prayer or whatever it is?
Well, I guess by the ruling, the city council would decide if they're other than Christian churches, they could allow somebody else to come in. But still, you've got everybody forcing everybody to pray. Fundamentally un-American.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about your next venture.
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann program.
a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour now here on a Tuesday morning, May 6th, and all of you regular listeners and viewers of The Bill Press Show are very excited because it's this time on a Tuesday morning when we say hello to the editor of HuffPost Hill, covers economic middle-class issues for the Huffington Post, the one and only Arthur Delaney. Young Mr. Delaney. Good morning, Arthur. How are you?
Let us pray.
No, you don't. Well, first of all, what kind of a prayer would you like to say? We only accept Christian prayers here. Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was a more pluralistic thing. I thought
No. This is the United States of America. This is Justice Antonin Scalia's United States of America, where unless you're a Catholic and a Christian, you don't count. In fact, in your HuffPost Hill yesterday, your coverage of this starts out with a little thing. One thing that was wrong with the Supreme Court's ruling. Quote, the majority's ruling was limited, however, as it did not advise Jews, Muslims, atheists, and others to don sunglasses and the biggest pair of Beats by Dre they can get their hands on to drown out Christian invocations. Very good. Yeah. Because in this town, there are only Christian churches.
Right.
So they're all going to be Jesus prayers. Right.
But, not too Jesus-y, right? Isn't that what the justices said? If it's got a little Jesus, as long as it's not bullying Islam or Judaism.
A little Jesus goes a long way. And as Justice Kennedy says, if you don't like it, you can just walk outside.
You can put on your Beats by Dre.
Yeah.
But they don't have to provide them.
No, they don't have to provide them. Or you can just walk out.
And
crazy.
Atheists, they get kicked around so much. One of the most hated groups in America, but for them, even a little God can be offensive. But no one cares about atheists.
No, or just simply, the non-believers, not quite atheists.
The agnostics.
Agnostics, correct. Let's say hello to Josh out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Josh.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, good. What's up? What do you think of this?
Basically, my point is technically the Pledge of Allegiance is kind of a prayer. I mean, it's not actually a prayer to a specific God, but also, there's nothing wrong with if Christians can in that town start the meetings off with a prayer, then they shouldn't be able to stop a Muslim from wanting to offer up a prayer, or even an atheist to give words of encouragement to people to empower them. I mean, it'd make us more culturally diverse if we see and hear other people's religions and take them for the positive that they could instill.
Well, Josh, I think there's a place for that. But it's not the city council. I mean, I'm against any prayer, period. I don't care if they have a rabbi one day and an imam the next day and a priest the next day and a pastor the next day. They're there to conduct city business, period. Right? Why mix religion with city business? If you want to have an ecumenical prayer service at the convention center or out in a park or at one of the different churches, but not the city council. That's my point.
What
Appreciate
Josh
the
is
call,
saying
Josh.
Is sort of like what the dissenters wrote, which is that if this were a little more pluralistic, it would be better. if it weren't just Christian prayers, it would be less of an endorsement.
They did say that, and that one thing that makes Greece, New York, particularly offensive is because in that town there are only Christian churches. Therefore, the pastor of the month is always going to be a Christian, Catholic Christian, or Christian, or do you know what I mean? Protestant or Catholic.
If a town
is really
council
what I'm
were
saying.
opening with Muslim prayers, there would be an uproar.
I'll bet you, if they were saying we only have mosques in this town, so every prayer is going to be, every month it's going to be a different imam.
I mean, you remember they tried to open that mosque.
This court would have ruled 9-0 against that. Right.
I think that's clear. You remember they tried to open the Ground Zero Mosque.
So-called Ground Zero Mosque.
It
right.
is Christians who talk about being persecuted religious minorities, when we in fact do have a faith in this country that is systematically harassed by the FBI, the NYPD, and the media. It's not Christians.
But I'm a complete believer in the separation of church and state, meaning even the prayer, not only no prayer in public schools, which the justices left that alone yesterday, no prayer at city council meetings, county supervisor meetings, state legislative meetings, and the United States Congress. The fact they still have a chaplain in the United States Congress, James Madison I'm sure, rolls in his grave every day because of that. So, same as Thomas Jefferson. They're the ones who wrote the separation of church and state in Virginia, first of all, and then put it in the United States Constitution. Let's jump out. One more call on this, and we got to move on. Joe is calling out in Chicago. Hey, Joe. Good morning.
Hey, this is Joey. Good
morning,
Joey.
Joey. Oh, it's not Joey. Come on. They put you up as Joe. I thought. Hey, Joey. Good morning. Good to hear from you.
Good morning. You know what's kind of funny is the Christians in their prayers. They think because they say the prayers are Christians. There's more than Christianity than saying your prayers. It's passing unemployment insurance. Christians do more than say words. They do actions. So all the prayers and the words don't mean you're Christian, gentlemen. You have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, people.
Joey, amen to you, brother. Yes,
Joey's
indeed.
breathing fire.
Breathing fire. But he's absolutely right. Here are these so-called Christians who won't pass the minimum wage, right? Great transition, to Arthur Delaney. Here we go. So yesterday, we've got a Republican yesterday morning. A Republican candidate for president who ran the last time. He's going to run again. We know that because he's already running. Former United States Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum, as conservative as they come, right? Asked by Chuck Todd on MSNBC, what about the minimum wage? Republicans oppose it. Rick Santorum.
This is one I don't get. If the Republicans want to go out and say we're against the minimum wage, then go out and make the argument to the American public and 80-some% of the American public who believes we should have a minimum wage. Right. But that's the arguments. They're making arguments about why we shouldn't have any increase. Well, right now, again, according to the numbers I've seen, minimum wage covers about 2% of all workers. Right. Historically, it's been 7 to 9%. And so what I've said is, and I argued this when I was in Congress, we should try to keep it in the 7% range.
In other words, have it adjust with inflation, right? Just move up and not debate it every year. But I mean, for Rick Santorum to say that, I would hope would make some Republicans think, are we really on the right side of this issue?
Well, he points out that it's extremely popular, which is one thing that has made the Republican opposition to it sort of surprising, because you could just agree to it, you wouldn't get beat up too much, and you could index it to inflation, stop getting beat up over it
every year,
forever, take it off the table. And there's just this commitment to fighting against President Obama, I think, that has more to do with their opposition than the policy or the economics.
Let me tell you, I am not right about everything. I'm the first one to admit that, right? But I am right. I am right about this. No Republican is going to lose a primary because they support an increase in the minimum wage.
Well, if anyone cares about Republican primaries, it's that guy.
Yes, exactly.
That's the only thing he's here for.
Right.
Other than just sell books and get rich off this. But
when 80% of the American people approve it, I mean, there are, I keep pointing this out, I think you made this comment the last time. There are people who live on the minimum wage and living in poverty in red states and in Republican districts.
More of them.
Exactly. Not just right. There are more of them in those red states.
Santorum is right that it's a tiny percentage of workers who actually earn the minimum wage, but that does ignore the whole concept of where the wage floor is does really affect wages for people higher up on the ladder.
All right. Now, the other side of this argument is Senator Tom Coburn, Mr. Conservative from Oklahoma, has said he doesn't think, he said yesterday, there should not be a national minimum wage at all.
Right.
Let the market decide. How does that work, Arthur?
Well, the idea is the minimum wage is paternalistic.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't trust workers to enter into the contracts that they would. It says, you can't do that. Which I think, given the imbalance of power between employers and workers, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if you let the market decide, it will pay some very low wages.
It also trusts businesses to pay a living wage just out of the goodness of their own heart, right? CEOs.
We would be looking at even lower wages than we've got right now. And given the fact that incomes haven't gone up in years, economically, it's kind of a strange position. It's clear that wages would fall. What he's essentially saying is that we should pay workers even less, because that's the only outcome you'd get from abolishing the minimum wage.
Sure.
And that is, Republicans are the party of entrepreneurs, of people who take risks, of employers, and they don't support any policy that I'm aware of, any policy change that changes the balance of power between workers and businesses. That
There's no doubt.
Workers more power vis-a-vis their employers.
No, you're right. And there's no doubt, if you get rid of the minimum wage, the average wage is going to go down, not up.
Yeah, it's like saying tax cuts on rich people pay for themselves, just because there's free market fairy dust that makes everything better. But it's clear what would happen. Rick Santorum has got this sort of blue-collar, conservative Catholic shtick.
Yeah.
And that's what he is clearly banking on when it's, time for him to sell more books or eventually run for president again. And that's interesting. Republican primaries could really use somebody saying something favorable about working people.
Well, they could use somebody saying, you know what, guys, we have to pick our battles, right? And refusing to extend unemployment insurance and refusing to raise the minimum wage are not the battles that we as a party ought to stand for.
Well, on the other hand, all this polling's coming out saying Democrats are going to get clobbered right at the height of their talking points on the minimum wage, unemployment insurance, and these other things. So is it how powerful is it? It's so popular. Are they not talking about it enough? Like what is going on that these economic fairness issues are not putting them farther ahead politically?
The other shoe is yet to drop on that. I don't believe those. That's like the poll saying that because all the chatter these days that because President Obama's approval rating is down to 41%, that means Democrats are not going to hold on to the Senate.
Right.
That is BS. I wish I could say the word on the air. That is total BS. It's apples and oranges. There's no connection. People in Louisiana are not going to vote for or against Mary Landrieu based on what Obama's poll numbers are.
Rick Santorum, is he just trying to differentiate himself, or does he actually think it matters to Republicans?
He comes from Pennsylvania, and on some blue-collar issues, he was a good vote when he was a senator from Pennsylvania. So was Arlen Specter. Arlen Specter, labor unions supported Arlen Specter in Pennsylvania, big Republican, because he was good on working-class issues. And Rick Santorum was too on the social issues. He was just out to lunch. We are all over the place this morning here with Arthur Delaney from the Huffington Post. Going from prayer in city council meetings to the minimum wage. We've got lots more coming up. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
HuffPost Hill, the daily newsletter, news roundup of the Huffington Post. Editor Arthur Delaney in studio with us here with 10 minutes to go. Olivier Knox is in the next hour, here as a friend of Bill for the entire hour. And of course, since it's Tuesday, we'll be joined by Igor Volsky, the managing editor of Think Progress. Arthur, you have another... Oh, first of all, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. Friday, the new numbers, job numbers came out for the month of April. 288,000 private sector jobs created. I think it's the fifth month in a row they've been over 200,000, something like that. Third month in a row. Okay. And the unemployment rate falling to 6.3%. What's it mean?
All the way down from 6.7%. That's a big monthly drop, bigger than we usually see.
But some people say that's just because there are fewer people who are looking for a job.
It was. So even though this was a great headline jobs report, it wasn't that strong. The numbers come from two surveys, as everyone knows. And the 288,000 number is from a survey of payrolls. Big sample size, very accurate. The other one is from a 60,000 household survey. It actually found that there were 70,000 fewer jobs in the economy last month. Not a gain of 200,000, but 70,000 fewer, and the unemployment rate still went down because there were 800,000 fewer people in the workforce. Now, these monthly snapshots are revised, and economists say just disregard that huge drop. It's sort of statistical noise. There had been big 100,000 increases in the labor force the previous months, so it's kind of a leveling out.
But back to what we were just talking about, the underbelly of this is that while we've created 288,000, over 200 for the third month in a row, and President Obama gave the total number of jobs created in the last 18 months or so, in the Rose Garden last Friday. But still, back again, making the connection to what we were talking about, wages have not gone up.
Right,
so more jobs created, but no higher wages.
Wages aren't going up because there's this other bad stuff going on that is not. You don't see that in the headline number of the rate. There are people leaving the labor force. Those are all people who could come back in to the labor force. I think that's why there isn't more pressure on wages. Though economists were saying after that report, that should be around the corner. If unemployment rate gets down in the 5% range, which is what they consider, quote unquote, full employment, wages should rise. But we're not there yet.
So we have to wait for that. I was just going to, how do we complete the picture by not only having more jobs created, but people starting to earn more, which they haven't for the last 10, 15 years?
I think so much of the decline in unemployment rate has had to do with the decline in labor force participation, that it's definitely too soon to look at the numbers and assume you ought to see wage growth. But that could happen soon.
So the closer we get to 5%, the sooner we're going to see wages start to bump up.
The fewer millions of unemployed people there are just waiting in reserve to take available jobs. You need those people to either get jobs or retire or something before there's going to be any upward pressure on wages, because there's 4 people for standing there for every job opening. How are you going to demand higher wages when you could just take some unemployed guy who'll work for so much less out of desperation?
All right, so we got to complete the picture there, and we will talk about it again next week with Arthur Delaney. Thank you, Arthur, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good one. It's HuffingtonPost.com. Thanks, Arthur. We'll be right back. Olivier Knox in the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Bauhaus was one of the most definitive design movements of the modern age, reaching its peak between the 2 world wars. The word Bauhaus, loosely translated from German, means house of construction or school of building. Bauhaus was a new type of art school. Historically, European art academies taught each design subject separately. The Bauhaus offered foundation training in many art and design disciplines. They believed in variety. Understanding mass production was part of the curriculum, and the school sought to develop students who could unify art with craft while embracing new technology. It was also the beginning of the art school as an alternative way of life. Germany at that time was a pretty conservative place. And before the Nazis said "Nein" to the Bauhaus, it was arguably the most celebrated art school in the world. Bauhaus thinkers believed the world needed to be fundamentally rethought. Unnecessary ornamentation was out. Minimalism was in. Good design required simplicity and geometric purity. One of the best known icons of Bauhaus design is the cantilevered chair. Designed by someone named Breuer, it was inspired by the steel tubes of his bicycle, and ultimately led to the first lightweight, mass-produced metal chair. Despite his success, Breuer concluded that eventually chairs would become obsolete, and everyone would soon be sitting on supportive columns of air. Bauhaus was all about innovation and inspiration. Nowadays, Bauhaus influences can be seen everywhere, from road signs and graphic design to big windows and even bigger buildings. In architecture, the international style, as it became known, influenced skylines the world over. Bauhaus was about ideas, reform, exploration and vitality, about making more tidy sense of the rapidly evolving world around us, and giving us more cool stuff for our apartments.
Tune into the Tom Hartman Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
Taking another look at what's coming up, Olivier Knox from Yahoo News here is a friend of Bill. In the next hour, we'll be joined by Igor Volsky from Think Progress. And the White House yesterday saying we're not sure whether or not we're going to cooperate with that new select committee on Benghazi.
This is... You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. So good to see you this morning. It is Tuesday, May 6th, and this is the Bill Press Show. We are here in your nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where there is lots going on at the Supreme Court, at the White House, in the Congress. We'll tell you all about it, tell you what's going on around the country and around the globe as well, and most importantly, then kick back and let you take off and sound off on the issues of the day. You can do so by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. We are always happy to hear from you. Yesterday, President Obama held a reception yesterday evening at the White House. Vice President Joe Biden having a big breakfast celebration at the Naval Observatory, all in honor of Cinco de Mayo, and both of them made the point the real way to celebrate Cinco de Mayo is to pass comprehensive immigration reform and to do it this year. Meanwhile, John Boehner moving ahead with plans to establish a special House committee to investigate Benghazi, even though there have already been 13 hearings so far by 5 different committees on Benghazi. Democrats under the minority leader Steny Hoyer has said that they oppose this plan and may not even appoint any Democrats to serve on it. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court yesterday moved to tear down the wall of separation between church and state by saying it's okay for a city or a county or a state legislature to open up its meetings with a Christian prayer. They said it's just like the Pledge of Allegiance. No, it's not. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more again. And take your calls at 866-55-PRESS today, Tuesday, on The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Boehner appoints a select committee on Benghazi. God, what do you know? Next thing you know, they'll vote to repeal Obamacare. Oh, wait, they've already done that over 50 times. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Tuesday, May 6th. So good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for being there on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. We're there with you on the radio and there with you also on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish? You've got us on Direct TV. And worldwide, if you got any kind of electronic device, your iPhone or your iPad or your laptop or whatever, we are there with you on our video stream at TawkrTV. YouTube.com/TawkrTV. So much information to get through this morning, so many news stories we need help help of a good friend here as a friend of Bill, Olivier Knox, who is covers the White House for Yahoo News and a good friend of mine and a pal at the briefings every day. Hello, Olivier. Nice to see you.
Hi, how are you?
And a member of the board of the White House Correspondents Association.
That's right. That's right.
Singled out at Saturday night's dinner, the one representing the new media on the board.
That's right.
Which is it's going to step forward.
That was a really nice shout out, really classy shout out from Steve Thumba, the head of the association. I was very pleased. I was very grateful.
I thought it was important to recognize, kind of the growth, if you will,
I
of
went
the association.
I went from the oldest newswire in the world to Yahoo News, so it's kind of an interesting jump.
From AP?
From AFP.
AFP. Oh,
yeah.
AFP.
Don't buy the Associated Press spin. The
Is-
AFP is considerably older than AP, despite what AP says.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't know that. I'm glad I learned that here this morning. Olivia is here with us the entire hour as a friend of Bill. Our leader of our team, Peter Ogburn, still on vacation, but Elisa Murphy doing a good job filling in, wearing her hat and Peter's hat at the same time. Elisa, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
With Alicia Cruz there. She is standing by to take your calls to join the conversation. We'll always make room for you at 866-55-PRESS. And on the video stream and on Free Speech TV, if we're looking good, you can thank Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. If we're looking bad, you can thank us. That's blame us. Right. I think that's about right. Hey, this is big news, Olivier. I didn't realize until Conan O'Brien informed me. In the Obama family, some big change. Here he is last night.
Michelle Obama's brother has been fired as the basketball coach at Oregon State. Yeah. And like most Americans who lost their job, he blames Obama. The one guy that can call him up.
Can you imagine whoever the head coach was or the athletic director at Oregon State to have the gonads to fire Michelle's brother?
I want the minutes of the meeting where they decided to do this and they drew straws or did rock, paper, scissors or something. Yeah.
That
would have been great.
That was a pretty bold decision. And I don't know. I thought he was a pretty good coach. I mean, all I know is that Michelle and Barack used to go to, they'll go to his games, right?
Right, and the president's a big basketball fan. I mean, let's start a conspiracy theory right here.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. When I heard that, I was surprised. Whoa, they did that? I guess maybe you'd have to say he'd have to be pretty bad for them to do that. Huh? So Olivier here's a friend of Bill. Elahe Izadi from National Journal here as a friend of Bill in the next hour. The first time in the history we've had two friends of Bill in one day.
Outstanding.
How about that? Yeah, it is. And Igor Volsky will be joining Olivier and me at the half hour here from Think Progress. And we'll get right to the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Whoa. Here it is. One other quick little story. We don't have the full Full Court Press today, but just one story at a time. This, Olivier, for those of us who use our iPhone all the time, batteries are always running down. Here is the answer. There's a new line of clothing which includes solar-powered dresses. And these solar-powered dresses actually have the technology to recharge your cell phone. So the jacket has rigid solar cells that can be folded down for a more streamlined look. And 1 hour in direct sunlight will charge a smartphone up to 50%.
This is my big shot at finally getting an iMumu that I could wear around the house.
maybe the same designer could come up with a solar-powered jacket for men, too.
That'd be fabulous.
Right. So you just put your phone in your pocket, and it recharges. Well, I mean, why not, I guess?
Well, you're right. Like as my people, the French say, you can't stop progress, right? It's like those jackets from the 90s where you could plug your iPod in and they had two little speakers here, which I thought were maybe the most toxic, horrible garments ever devised as you walk around with your iPod music sort of pumping through these little speakers.
Right. So there you go. That's coming, heading your way. Now, Olivia, I want to talk a little internal business maybe first, which is you and I were at not only the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend, but it's the 100th anniversary of the White House Correspondents Association. Steve Thoma, our president, I think did a great job of some panels leading up to the dinner, talking about the history of the association, the history of reporters covering the White House. You and I were at a panel last Wednesday night where former press secretary Mike McCurry said his one big regret is that he's the guy that let the TV cameras go live in the briefings.
He called it a fatal mistake. I mean, he really was tough on himself for that decision, and specifically for letting it be live too.
Yeah, right.
That was a really amazing
He
moment.
said if they got a little footage that they could use, a little B-roll, as we called it, right, in the evening newscast, fine, or even a little clip. But to have it be covered live, he said, was a fatal mistake. But so I want to ask you, was it a mistake, and was there any way really to stop it?
I think the second question is the more important one, frankly, and I don't think there was really any way to stop it. I mean, Mike brought over the idea from State, where at the State Department they used to do the first 5 minutes of the briefing on camera. That's actually really helpful because that narrows the window for TV correspondents to ask their questions. So they do get their footage, but they don't have the same incentive to speak for 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is they do individually every day. So Mike ported that over from State, and it actually, he's right. There was no good way to make that not happen. But was it a mistake? I suppose it was. I mean, I'm tougher on us in the way that we as reporters use the briefing than I am on the White House. I do regret Dana Perino's decision to do away with the off-camera gaggle, which was a separate briefing, usually in the press secretary's office, that was off-camera, where I felt we got a lot more done, and frankly, where the print reporters were pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I regret that. I do regret Mike's decision, but I don't see a way that he could have not done it.
But the result of that is today, right? We know, and people who watch on C-SPAN or wherever, or on the cable channels, that in the front row you've got the TV reporters for CBS and for NBC and for CNN and for ABC and Fox, and every one of them will ask almost the same question because they want to have their time on camera. So it is all dominated today, certainly the first 15, 20 minutes, by the TV.
More than that. More than that.
Okay, more than that. By the TV cameras.
I wrote a column last year called Save the Terrible White House Briefing, in which I basically said, absolutely do not do away with this. This is such an important institution. I did ding both Jay Carney and the TV folks for the sort of the on-camera back and forth, the way the camera makes them preen a little more and perform a little more.
Performance art is what Ron Nessen, former press secretary,
that's right. That was good
called
too.
it, and I thought that was a good phrase.
But I take issue. I mean, I took issue with some of the ways that we use it. There's no rule that says the back row is to keep quiet while TV asks its 15th question. I mean, and I've told TV correspondents this, that if they don't start exercising some self-discipline, I guarantee you people in the back are going to start calling out questions. There's no rule that says we can't. And this isn't the president. It's not like you have to sort of have any kind of silent courtesy here. Jay has some limited ability to control this, but we should really be taking back our own briefing, and that means asking questions. That means that when, I'm not going to pick on any one TV reporter, but when TV reporter X is on their fourth question, you and I in the back should be like, okay, but on Syria, let's talk about this.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, you anticipated my next question, which is that the very same briefing, D.D. Myers, also former press secretary under President Clinton, for President Clinton, said, we might be better off doing away with the briefings altogether because no news is made and no information is gathered.
It's almost an impossibly bad suggestion. This is the one time in the day when someone from the White House has to come out and take questions and has to evade answering on camera. The briefing helps. It's one of those democratizing moments where if you're in the back rows and you maybe get one question at the briefing, that's still probably more than you get answered throughout the rest of the day. Sometimes it can make people call you up or email you with suggestions or ideas. Sources were like, "Oh, I didn't know you were interested in that. Here's this other thing," and doing away with it would only emphasize the way this White House and every White House after it, the way this White House uses certain outlets to get information out.
Right.
So the briefing is one place where it's not going to go to just the Associated Press or just the New York Times or just Politico Playbook. It's a wretched idea, and I have to say I would oppose it. I'm a bring back the gaggle guy and a do away with the briefing world.
Right. Yeah. No. You mentioned that's one thing I was surprised to discover, that sometimes you ask a question, you'll hear from other people in the White House who say, "Gee, here's some more information."
Absolutely.
Or you'll hear from people outside the White House right? Other sources or something to say, whoa, if you're really interested in this topic, you ought to look at this or you ought to.
Absolutely. And the other thing we should be doing is if, and I'm not picking on Jay specifically, but if whoever the press secretary is, if you ask them a question and they don't answer it, write that.
Sure.
Write that.
Sure.
Do 5 paragraphs that say the White House refused to do X today. You saw some of that overnight on some of the Benghazi stuff, but just so write that. It's a surprisingly effective lever for prying open the White House. Whoa, I wasn't. You wrote that I ducked your question, but actually, here's the answer. Doing away with this briefing would accelerate all of the bad things about press coverage of D.C.
Now, you got a lot of buzz a couple of days ago. You are a master tweeter. I tweet only at the White House briefings, but I do, and I get a lot of feedback from it because I usually just give I'm not there reporting news necessarily, just giving my snarky opinion on usually something that Jay Carney says. But there is a person at the White House, you pointed out, revealed to the world, whose job really is to check your tweets and mine and others, right?
That's right. There's a 24-year-old who works in the old executive office building adjacent to the White House. Her name is Jessica Allen, and part of Jessica's job is to monitor the White House press corps and a lot of political reporters' tweets and flag the problematic ones for senior officials. When I say senior officials, I mean White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough. I mean White House Counsel Kathy Rummler. I mean Jay Carney, which is more natural. I mean a lot of NSC staff.
Whoa.
So Jessica will flag problematic tweets or tweets that they want to emphasize, because that also happens. And then, usually the communication staff you'll hear back. It's not that Jay is sitting there hitting refresh on his computer, which would be a little sad. It's that this stuff is being flagged for them.
That's amazing, though. That it goes all the way up the food chain, like to Dennis McDonough, right?
That's right. Yeah. Now, mind you, I was told that some of the senior folks just create, a folder into which that all goes, and they look at it twice a day, not every time it goes in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually, it serves a similar purpose to the briefing, which is you're asking a public question or making a public comment, and the fact of doing it in public generates feedback.
I have had responses to my tweets from White House officials, and I wondered how the hell they knew. Now I know, thanks to you. But what does it say about the power of Twitter? Is it really that powerful that they have to have somebody in the White House who monitors them? They're so afraid of.
Well, no, it's as I said, you're making a comment in public, which has influence over other people's views. It's also where PAC journalism starts now, right? You no longer need to be in the same room, on the same bus, in the same filing center to have that weird effect where people start talking about a news story and opinion gels around one idea. Now it can just be a handful of reporters who are opinion makers for their colleagues, putting stuff on Twitter that the White House knows can turn into stories. It's also that reporters very frequently tip their hand on Twitter about what they're going to write next.
Yeah, sure.
So of course it's absolutely important.
Yeah, boy, what a power, huh? Jessica Allen.
Maybe I heard from so many people who
nobody
said that she
ever heard her name.
Might be the most important member of the communication staff, which is probably true. I mean, she flags news stories too.
And you know what? I don't know. Did you interview her?
She was not made available for an interview.
Okay. But what I started to say is, if she walked into the briefing room, I would not know her. I would not recognize her. I've never seen her. Have you?
I might be able to recognize her just because I know what she looks like, but no. And I mean, everybody agreed that she's probably the most important and has the best news judgment of anyone in that building because she's constantly reading news and reporter tweets.
Wow, that's amazing. Olivier Knox here with us from Yahoo News. It's yahoonews.com, of course. And the big White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend. Jay Carney bobbing and weaving on Benghazi yesterday. Lots more to talk about on the other side. We'll be right back. And your call's always welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're gonna do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory, and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, a lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour here on a Tuesday morning, May 6th. Here's a friend of Bill, Olivier Knox, covers the White House for Yahoo News, and Igor Volsky, usually here at this time, but he is here half an hour later today from Think Progress, managing editor of Think Progress, who will be along at the half hour. So this was the White House Correspondents' dinner weekend. Dinner Saturday night. You were at the head table as a member of the association. I saw Mark Leibovich from the author of This Town, New York Times, on Morning Joe this morning, saying again, this is an abomination, this dinner. A lot of criticism about, this sort of self-congratulatory event that we have every year. What's your take?
I think there are very real problems with the dinner. I think the most important moment for me in the dinner is when the president of the association says that if you cover the White House in any capacity, whether you're a cameraman, a still photographer, a radio person, wire person, newspaper, new media, whatever you are, stand up and be recognized. And you look at that room and it's like one person every 3 or 4 tables. I think that's a real problem. We've been talking about that at the association board, trying to reverse that trend. But we actually have very few, in our bylaws, we have no enforcement mechanisms for this.
So I was there, right? I stood up. There were 2,630 people in that ballroom. And you're right. If you looked around that room, there were not a lot of people standing.
I think, and he's not here to respond to me, so I don't want to unleash the Kraken on Mark Leibovich. But I think he gets the criticisms of the dinner completely wrong. I think that he's selling a book, and he's doing a very good job of selling that book. But he did this stunt on Saturday night where he held what he called a media ethics seminar in one of the Hilton suites. They didn't approach the association, at least not me. They didn't publicize the event, and of course, it wouldn't have worked as a book-selling stunt if anyone had showed up. So is it an abomination? Like I'll leave that to other people to judge. I would like it, and I think everyone on the board would like it to become more about the correspondence again. To be actually in some ways to make it more a self-congratulatory event for the White House press corps and less a self-congratulatory event for the media outlets, the corporate parts of the media outlets. I think that we are all frustrated with that, but I really don't want to lose track of this one thing. The dinner is the association's only fundraising tool for the tens of thousands of dollars that we give to a dozen or so scholarship winners.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
At 34 minutes after the hour, Tuesday morning, May 6th, Igor Volsky on his way from Think Progress. He will join us as soon as he lands here in the studio. Olivier Knox is here from Yahoo News, covers the White House for Yahoo News. Here is a friend of Bill the entire hour, Olivier. Just changed seats.
That's
but,
right.
All right, microphone is still working. I want to talk about Benghazi.
Sure.
And I want to particularly ask you about how the media is handling Benghazi and how the White House is handling Benghazi, because it has been a year and a half. Jay Carney pointed out yesterday there have been 13 hearings by 5 different committees, and now there's a new select committee on Benghazi. Is this a big deal?
Well, I mean, the select committee is a big deal to the extent that it will probably have subpoena power and it will probably have the ability to make life difficult for the administration. Republicans say that they need that in order to get to the bottom of what, let's face it, was a communications operation. That's what they're focusing on mostly. They've talked about embassy security in past hearings. This so far at least seems to be focused on the notion that the White House withheld documents from the Hill. In terms of how the media is handling it and how the White House is handling it, I think there's ample room for criticism on both of these.
We have had 3 briefings in a row that have been almost exclusively on Benghazi.
With very mixed results, because I think yesterday's briefing, where the point was to try to nail down whether the White House was prepared to commit to cooperating with the Select Committee, I thought that was a very important question. What they're worried about at the White House, they're worried about a committee that will try to make a point by demanding that everyone at the White House testify, basically. And they're worried about that. They're worried about challenges on things where they would have to, or they feel they would have to assert executive privilege. They're worried about an election year circus of sorts on Benghazi. They point to the fact that the chairman of the Select Committee has already gone out and said that he has concrete evidence of a campaign to mislead Congress that he can't share. He can share the allegation, but he can't share any of the evidence for it. So they're concerned. On the media front, it's been a very mixed bag over the last year and a half. I will tell you, I covered it pretty closely in the initial phases, and I've dipped into it a few times since. And I will tell you, I have some serious lingering questions about the United States government's handling of the situation before, during, and after the attack. But I'm fairly prepared to buy you an inexpensive domestic beer if this select committee answers any of them. And just to give you an example, because I don't want to just throw that out there.
Why not some expensive French champagne, Olivier?
Well, because it's actually, the White House is also saying it's perfectly possible that Trey Gowdy is going to lead an above board investigation that really is looking at this seriously. So I don't want to make fun of it too much. But so one of my questions is, how do we get from the State Department and CIA people on the ground in Libya reporting back to the United States that this was a terrorist attack, reporting back that the tactics used and the people involved made it clear that it was a terrorist attack? How do we get from that point to a point where the intelligence community seems to be the one leading the way to play that part down and to refer to protests and demonstrations that then, quote, evolved into an attack? I don't really understand the gap between the field people and Langley, and I'd like to understand it. I'm just not sure that that's what we're going to get out of this.
Here's what the question I had yesterday is, it seems to me, and obviously I'm coming at it from a liberal progressive commentator kind of point of view, that on top of all of these other hearings, that the Republicans are really trying to keep this issue alive for this election year, and one of the ways of doing it is a select committee. I don't think you can deny that there's certainly some there's politics behind every decision made in Washington. Sure. So part of Boehner's decision is certainly a political decision. I don't know why Jay Carney yesterday just saying, hell no, we're not going to cooperate with this select committee. Why the dance? I mean, he did try to undermine the legitimacy of it by saying even some Republicans say we've done enough on this, and so there are reasons to doubt its legitimacy, but he wouldn't say he would never not answer that question.
In fact, yesterday was a good day to follow the State Department briefing, where Deputy Spokeswoman Marie Harf called the Select Committee a waste of taxpayer time and resources and money, and then later said we never plan on being uncooperative. So a kind of a twofer, same sort of twofer as Jay was offering up, but a little tougher, frankly.
Yes.
They just don't want to. They just don't know what this is going to look like yet. They're still waiting to see what the Democratic composition will be. There's still some arguing on the Hill about the ground rules for how this committee is going to function. And as I talked to a couple people in the administration yesterday who said, we're not super optimistic, but of course there's a chance that they're going to do this right and they're going to do it fairly. And then, we don't want to commit to not cooperating because that would be its own thing. We don't want to commit to cooperating because what if it turns into just a sort of a witch hunt? So that's why they tried to straddle that line yesterday. We tried to pin them down. What we successfully pinned them down on was that we couldn't pin them down on it. So I think it's kind of an open question, and I think that's what they were deliberately trying to leave us the impression that it was an open question.
Is the media beating a dead horse on Benghazi?
No, I think there are still a lot of questions out there, as I said. I think there are some substantive questions. There have been a lot of media mistakes, however, in the last couple of years, from the reports about a direct stand-down order, the idea that the administration deliberately withheld military assets that could have made a difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That turned out not to be true. There have been a lot of things that have turned out not to be true, and so we should be really pretty careful. I think the White House makes mistakes when it doesn't give us the full truth. There was that argument at one of the recent briefings about this quote unquote new email from the Deputy National Security, Deputy National Security Advisor. And, reporters were saying it's about Benghazi. Jay was saying it's not about Benghazi. It is in fact about both. It is about the region, and there's a section on Benghazi. And so I thought we could both go home and pound our pillows after that briefing.
Yeah, after many of them. We'll take a quick break with Olivier Knox. Igor Volsky has arrived. He'll join us. We'll continue the conversation with Olivier, with Igor, and with you at 866-55-PRESS, Tuesday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 16 minutes before the top of the hour with a full crew here this Tuesday morning on The Bill Press Show. As a friend of Bill, this entire hour, Olivier Knox covers the White House for Yahoo News. And joining us now, as he does every Tuesday morning, usually a little earlier than this, the managing editor of Think Progress.
Good morning, Bill.
Igor Volsky. Hello, Igor. How are you?
Hello. Very good.
You must have been proud yesterday when John Podesta came in the briefing room.
I was slightly excited, yes.
The founder of the Center for American Progress, opening up the briefing.
I, of course, then had to go and Google all of the pictures of John Podesta in the briefing room from back in the 90s and match the progression. It was very fun, yes.
I think you wrote about this, Igor. He did announce yesterday they're going, Olivier, rather, that they're building up to a new administration report on climate change. This week, he talked about
rollout today, where the president's going to do interviews with basically weather people from around the country at the White House to talk about the climate change report, to talk about the impact, and to really. This is one of those times when the White House is doing something pretty smart, which is they're focusing on a very specialized part of the media, and where they know they're going to get questions about what they want to talk about. It's a smart move. They're going to talk to people who are probably more inclined to look at the science and agree, and who are unlikely to ask about, say, Benghazi.
Right.
Hard to avoid these days.
No, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I saw on the president's schedule today that he's giving interviews to some like half a dozen or more meteorologists from TV stations around the country, I'm thinking, What the hell? So it's all on the climate change report.
Yeah, this is one of those times, as I said, when the White House is being pretty smart about their media strategy.
Igor, one question that I had my hand raised to ask John Podesta yesterday. Peter Alexander from NBC asked it before I could, which is, if you're talking about all these good things we're doing, as John Podesta was, for renewable energy, my question was, then how could you possibly support the Keystone Pipeline?
Well, he doesn't, John Podesta. He was a longtime opponent. It's where the administration is. That's the question.
But I know, but Podesta would not answer that question. He said when he came to the White House, he agreed.
Yeah.
But Keystone, he would not get involved in that decision.
We'll tell you in 6 months, he said.
Right. Or whatever the date is after the election.
Yeah, exactly.
But the focus was on all that they've done and are still doing toward renewable energy.
Yeah, it's part of this year of action, that actual action they're taking, and I think in a couple of months they'll have the rules for the power plants, which is going to be the controversial moment where you'll see a lot of politics play out.
You have reported on Think Progress this morning that Senator Tom, all the debate about raising the minimum wage, Republicans, for the most part, oppose it. Although we did get some interesting comment yesterday from Senator Rick Santorum, former senator from Pennsylvania, and Republican candidate who then, and I'm sure in the future, yesterday telling Chuck Todd he thinks we ought to raise it. Here he is.
This is one I don't get. Either, if the Republicans want to go out and say we're against the minimum wage, then go out and make the argument to the American public, and 80-some% of the American public who believes we should have a minimum wage. Right. But that's the arguments. They're making arguments about why we shouldn't have any increase. Well, right now, again, according to the numbers I've seen, minimum wage covers about 2% of all workers. Right. Historically, it's been 7 to 9%. And so what I've said is, and I argued this when I was in Congress, we should try to keep it in the 7% range.
I love covering Rick Santorum. Chris Matthews gets a chill from Obama. I get a chill from Rick Santorum because he's so much fun on so many issues. Remember, in 2012, he was the social conservative. Now he's the blue-collar conservative, out with his new book and trying to really tap into that conservative, economic, populist voter base and downplaying his social conservatism and kind of trying to get back to his Pennsylvania roots. Now, he's been all over the place in the minimum wage. He voted for parts of it when he was a senator. Mm-hmm. Then in 2012, he backed away from that record, very specifically, actually, on Fox News Sundays, I remember, saying that then he was representing Pennsylvania, but as a president, he's going to represent the nation and not going to do such a thing. And 2 weeks ago on Morning Joe, he said he doesn't support raising the minimum wage because it would replace workers with, quote, machines. Now on Chuck Todd yesterday, he's trying to find some kind of position where he is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And it's very interesting to see how all these guys line up ahead of 2016.
But you know, Olivier, Arlen Specter, who was also a senator from Pennsylvania at the same time, Republican, was a blue-collar conservative Republican who had a lot of support from labor unions. I'm sure today he'd be supporting the minimum wage increase.
I think that's a good bet, and I think the point about getting back to his Pennsylvania roots while trying to keep his options open for 2016 is really what's going on here. I thought Rick Santorum in 2012 was never more effective than in his speech the night of the Iowa caucus, where he really reclaimed the part of his background that is the blue-collar, hardworking, conservative wing. Democrats have a bit of a problem with, to be very specific, in places like Pennsylvania and Delaware, with white union working-class voters. And if Rick Santorum can put himself in a place where he could deliver some segment of that population, he would have a lot more influence in 2016. I don't know a lot of political prognosticators who think that Mr. Santorum is going to be the nominee, but he would be in a good position to, if he can deliver swaths of that, it would be effective.
I think he's smart to stake out that claim rather than try to outdo, Rand Paul.
I've always said, don't count him out. This is a smart guy. And yesterday he was on Cavuto and also tried to downplay his social conservatism by saying on gay marriage, states will do what they want, kind of adopting more of the federalism line, moving away in some part from his position there, which has been so defined.
All right. One thing I've got to ask you both about quickly is the new numbers on Obamacare that came out last week. we're pretty solid, I think. Over 8 million, another 4.8 million or something through extended Medicaid. So have we turned the corner, Olivier, now where people are sort of recognizing maybe reluctantly that, you know what, I guess it is here to stay?
Back in September, the White House was looking forward to a big change in the Obamacare debate from should we have Obamacare, should the government be involved in certain ways in health care. They wanted to change the debate to we gave you benefits, the Republicans want to take them away. Mm-hmm. Botched rollout of the website made that impossible. They got a big change in the debate about Obamacare. It just wasn't the one they wanted. Now they think that they're going to get that in spades. And in fact, you're seeing Republicans kind of start to fudge more on Obamacare, start to emphasize more like, well, IRS scandal and Benghazi and those things. Those things were always going to be part of the picture, but now with the Obamacare numbers looking better, with Gallup saying that the number of uninsured adults is now at its lowest level since they started polling that. Yeah. I think we may start to see that debate. Remember, it's also kind of the debate that we saw with Medicare Part D when the Republicans expanded it. They were very, very aware that they were offering a new benefit to Americans, and they were very aware of the political benefits of offering a new benefit to Americans. I think that's what's going to start happening here.
Yeah.
What's stark now is the contrast. Heritage Foundation put out a little explainer, the 9 worst predictions that came true about Obamacare. And what's ironic there is every one of those predictions that they claim happened, actually the opposite happened. And so you're in a situation where the case against Obamacare kind of meets face to face with the facts, and you can't reconcile the two. And so their talking points kind of really fall off the tree and onto the ground. And
when Kathy McMorris Rogers, part of the Republican leadership, came out last week, and she actually said, Obamacare is here to stay. We're not going to repeal it.
And got attacked for it from every corner.
But and that we're going to try to fix it and make it better. And to me, in the leadership, for her to say that, she was attacked, but
there's been that pendulum, right? There's been that weird pendulum on the Republican side of, from the death panel's claim to, I remember a very specific press conference with John Kyle and Eric Cantor at a moment when the media had turned pretty sharply against those kinds of really alarmist talking points. And Kyle and Cantor tried to offer a Republican alternative. And you can make a good case for some of this stuff. Yeah. And especially when you consider that Obamacare is essentially what the Republicans offered in '94. But you have this pendulum where they swing from the attacks into the, from repeal to replace, right? And there's that pendulum on that side of the party.
And the other thing here is 80% of the filing deadlines for the primaries have passed. So there's some room for them to say, maybe we can fix some things and not get rid of it entirely.
That's a great point.
Excellent point. Igor Volsky, thanks for coming in, as always, on Tuesday. All right. Think Progress, thinkprogress.org and yahoonews.com for Olivier Knox and all of his good work at the White House. And if you tweet, now from Olivier, the White House is watching and reading and commenting on your tweets. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I'll be back to tell you what the president's up to today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go. Hey, you know what? I agree. 2 hours is not enough. Yeah, great 2 hours, but not enough. All right, so we got a third hour coming up for you. You're going to lose us on Free Speech TV, but jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawkr, TAWKR-TV. In the next hour, Elahe Izadi, political reporter from National Journal, will be here as a friend of Bill. And we'll talk to Claire Shipman, ABC reporter, has a new book out about the confidence gap among women. How about that? Lots coming up. Hour number 3.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
President Obama gets a daily briefing this morning, and then this afternoon, something very unusual. He's going to sit out in the Rose Garden, and he's going to be interviewed by meteorologists. That's the weathermen or women from local TV stations from New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, and Columbia, South Carolina, all talking about climate change. And our briefing with Jay Carney at 12:30 today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. Not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100 and I'm 81 years old and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
On your TV and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Boehner appoints a select committee on Benghazi. Next thing you know, they'll be voting to repeal Obamacare. Oh, wait a minute. They've already done that over 50 times. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Tuesday, May 6th, the Bill Press Show. Here we are in our nation's capital, right here in the heart of the action on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, and booming out to you all across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station, and booming out to you planet-wide, all across the globe, around the globe, rather, on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Good to have you with us this morning, and delighted to welcome here as a friend of Bill for the 8 o'clock hour, Elahe Izadi, who is a staff correspondent with the National Journal, covering everything happening at the White House and the Congress and anywhere else in Washington, D.C. Elahe, good morning.
Good morning to you, Bill.
And how was your White House Correspondents' weekend?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling you during the break, I co-hosted the MSNBC coverage, and I headed to their party afterwards. So that was the extent of my White House Correspondent dinner.
All right,
weekend,
and as a stand-up comic yourself,
yes,
right?
Yes, this is true.
How would you rate President Obama's performance?
You know, I thought he did pretty well. He set a really high bar for himself in previous years. He
Yeah.
didn't do badly. It's just he's been really funny before. My favorite joke was the "Orange is the New Black" joke.
Orange is the New Black. Had to be the best line of the night.
Yeah, that was a pretty good line.
Yeah. Right. He was really, really good. The funniest probably was the Donald Trump year, but, you don't always have Donald Trump.
You got a lot of material to work with, so
That's right. Yeah.
there you go.
And Joel McHale?
Joel McHale, he was pretty good. I think his level of snark just doesn't work in that room, maybe. It felt like a roast of people who don't want to be roasted, basically. But
A hard act to follow, huh?
Yeah, well, hard act to follow the president. Yeah, for
that's what I
sure.
mean,
And
right.
all the comics who've ever done this dinner have always talked about how it's the weirdest gig they've ever had, because you are following the president, and the president is feet away from you, just a few feet away from you. And as you're telling the jokes, you're looking out of the corner of your eye, making sure he's laughing, because if he's not laughing, other people probably won't be laughing. So it's just a lot is going on at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a weird gig, I hear. Not that I've ever done it, but.
All right. Well, one of these years when I'm president of the association,
I'm going to hold you to that, Bill.
We'll save the tape here. Right.
Exactly.
Elahe joins us and our team this morning. Well, most of the team. Peter Ogburn is still vacating down in New Orleans. He'll be back in a couple of days. Elisa Murphy here. Elisa, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Running the board and keeping things all together. Alicia Cruz, standing by to take your phone calls and get you involved in the conversation at 866-55-PRESS. Don't forget. And Cyprian Bolding, yes, on the video stream all around the world. We're looking good, thanks to Cyprian, our videographer. And, all the talk, so much talk last week, all we talked about, I'm sorry you weren't here to join the conversation, about Donald Sterling.
Ah, yes.
And the weird girlfriend with the shield, right?
Desperate times.
Right.
Break out your shield.
So, right. So, after all the pictures taken of her courtside with Donald Sterling.
Exactly.
With no shield, suddenly she becomes famous and then she puts the shield on.
Yeah.
Go figure. But Barbara Walters landed the big interview with her.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Fallon last night pointed out there's something contradictory about this and weird about this interview. Here he is.
And finally, Barbara Walters asked her the question that we all want to know the answer to.
Is Donald Sterling a racist? No. I don't believe it in my heart. Have you heard him say derogatory things about minorities in general and blacks in particular? Absolutely.
Yeah. Jimmy makes the point here. Right.
I think her heart should listen to what her mouth is saying.
Yeah. No, he's not a racist. Oh, but he said terrible things about blacks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the term racist, and a few folks have made this point after all of this first came out, was that the term racist has become almost like this word that is so monstrous that no human being, unless they are the most overtly reprehensible person, could be deemed racist. They can say racist things, have racist actions, but they can't be a racist. So I think that's kind of what's at play here, because it just sounds like such a terrible word to be.
Right. Yeah, and people point out, well, look, but he hired all these black players and he's had black coaches, so therefore he can't be a racist. Yeah,
that's like the equivalent of my best friend is black, therefore I can't be racist.
Yeah.
Also, they're my employees. So.
Okay. So can I just ask you, as a woman?
Sure. I am one of those.
Why is she hanging out with this guy?
I don't know. Why do you think?
Money?
Maybe, yeah.
Can't be sex. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, it's weird. I mean,
well,
she's attractive. She's young. And, she's hanging out with this.
Well, you see some old rich men with young women. It's not that uncommon, I would imagine.
But he's ugly.
Enough
personal.
And he's a racist, apparently.
Yeah, there you go. All right, double question.
Yeah.
Elahe with us is our friend Bill, and we are going to be joined by Claire Shipman, actually, who has a new book out with Katie Kay about, do you find this interesting, women, lack of confidence. Why is it that some women don't have enough self-confidence? That's her new book. We'll talk to her a little bit later in the hour, and we'll get right to the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just one little quick, Peter does the Full Court Press, the whole thing. I don't. I just do one story, just a one off the wall story. But this caught my attention. I love Las Vegas. I'm not a gambler, but I just love watching people in the casino.
Okay.
Ben Affleck. Got in a little trouble in Vegas yesterday.
Oh.
He was kicked out of the Hard Rock Casino after being caught counting cards. Whoa, cheating.
Why does Ben Affleck need to count cards?
Exactly.
Are you going to be in Batman? What's going on, man?
Yeah, I know. He was playing blackjack at a high rollers table when security suddenly swarmed down on the table and threw him out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This happened yesterday?
By the way, apparently he is no stranger to gambling. He lost $400,000 in 2011 to Hollywood hotshot Ron Meyer. So maybe this guy's got a little addiction problem, huh? We didn't know that.
Well, maybe. I mean, apparently, so he has not come back to the White House Correspondent dinner ever since an incident in which someone at the dinner, like on the way to the bathroom, some very intoxicated woman flashed him. So he might have been better off coming up here to Washington than hanging out in Vegas counting cards, Ben.
There it is. By the way, I didn't know it was against the law. Why can't you count cards?
I guess it's considered cheating. Yeah. I don't know. Hey, if you can use your mind to beat the system, why not?
Yeah, I find it strange. At any rate, they're a little embarrassing. So, Elahe, you have been writing about the, first of all, let's talk about, because we haven't talked about this at all yet today, the Congressional Black Caucus last week. And we had two members of the caucus in Gwen Moore and Barbara Lee last week, and they both talked about this upcoming meeting with Paul Ryan. I mean, you would think if there's like oil and water, right, or orange and black or whatever, it's Paul Ryan and the Congressional Black Caucus. It was a private meeting, but what do you hear? How did it go? What was the upshot of it?
CBC members, the CBC chair, Marcia Fudge, came out of that saying, and Paul Ryan, that, it was a very cordial meeting. There was an exchange of opinions and views. The inner city comments did come up. Mm-hmm. Chairwoman Fudge said that he didn't really apologize for the comments, but essentially said what he said before, that, when you're talking about something, he basically said in his words that he wasn't as articulate as he could have been, but it was short of an apology. But those were the remarks that kicked off this whole meeting. And the CBC had reached out to him and asked him to come. So, I mean, what came out of the meeting? They basically talked to each other. There wasn't any No one changed their mind, as no one expected really to change their mind. And I hear that it really quickly went into policy, into areas of policy on how to tackle poverty. So it didn't really touch or deal or delve deeply into issues of race and that, but talking about policy. And as we know, Chairman Ryan's budget is very different than what Democrats want, and CBC has its own budget too. He has trillions of dollars in cuts, including cuts to social safety net programs that Democrats and the CBC are not too happy with. So.
No, what I've heard from members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as other liberal Democrats, or Democrats, period, is that, Paul Ryan, the good news is he knows there's poverty exists in this country. He is actually going out to visit poor areas of the country, making it, and not doing so with a lot of publicity. He's not going with a lot of TV cameras. He's just going down. And so he's interested in what you can do to help the poor. But then he comes out with a budget that cuts every program today that we've got that helps the poor, and says the war on poverty was a huge mistake and basically we ought to forget about it. So, there's this huge contradiction between what he seems to be interested in and yet what his policies are, and the policies he's recommending for the Republican Party.
Well, I think for him, he's going out and seeing these problems, and for him, he's viewing this as the war on poverty failed, that we have all of these programs that are intended to help poor people and alleviate poverty, and yet we see all this we see giant pockets of poverty in this country. So from his perspective, he's looking at it as what we've done so far has not worked. We need to do something different. But obviously, liberal Democrats, CBC, they don't agree with his approach of cutting into these programs.
Yeah, let's do something different, like let's refuse to raise the minimum wage, therefore leaving more people in poverty. I'm just that's the contradiction. I mean, and as the president points out, they're working at the minimum wage, working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and they're living below the poverty level.
Yeah, and I think the thing with the minimum wage too is if we look at the CBO report, the Congressional Budget Office report, which Republicans point to when we're talking about minimum wage, because they estimated up to 500,000 jobs lost or reduction in the workforce. But that same report also said by the year 2016, 900,000 people will be lifted out of poverty. So if you want to embrace the whole report, it's totally feasible to think, okay, we might see a reduction in the workforce, fewer jobs, but more people will be lifted out of poverty. So it's really a question of where do you want to make an impact almost. And Republicans say that they don't want to raise the minimum wage because they don't think it's good to pursue a policy that the CBO says will reduce job loss. But to be fair, the CBO report has been criticized roundly by Democrats.
So you have an article recently in the Journal where you say the minimum wage bill failed in the Senate. Now what?
Yeah.
So let me ask you that question. Now what?
Well, Democrats are pledging to bring it back up again. This is part of their midterm election year legislative agenda. That, along with the Paycheck Fairness Act, student loans is next. So they say they're going to bring it back up. It's not going to pass this year. Definitely won't. And for Democrats, they acknowledge, look, we believe in the policy, but it's really great politics too. So the more that they can kind of generate headlines where it says Republicans block the minimum wage, they killed the minimum wage hike, that Democrats feel like that's a winning strategy for them.
Well, some Republicans are starting to think, why are we taking a stand here of all places? Why? How is this going to help us? Rick Santorum yesterday on MSNBC with Chuck Todd, as conservative as you can get, but Santorum is saying he doesn't understand why congressional Republicans have decided to take a stand here. Rick Santorum.
This is one I don't get. Either if the Republicans want to go out and say we're against the minimum wage, then go out and make the argument to the American public, and 80-some% of the American public who believes we should have a minimum wage. Right. But that's the arguments. They're making arguments about why we shouldn't have any increase. Well, right now, again, according to the numbers I've seen, minimum wage covers about 2% of all workers. Right. Historically, it's been 7 to 9%. And so what I've said is, and I argued this when I was in Congress, we should try to keep it in the 7% range.
So he's always saying, raise it and expand it, the minimum wage, so it covers more people and, again, lifts more people out of poverty. It's just interesting to see whether there'll be more Republicans who realize or who come to the belief that this is not helping them.
Yeah, and there are a handful of Republicans, well, most notably Susan Collins, who was trying to come up with some alternative to what the Democrats had on the table. But hey, not all Senate Republicans, it was not clear whether they were all going to actually vote for this bill. We knew that Mark Pryor wouldn't vote on that first procedural motion, and he wasn't
Not all
in town.
Democrats.
Not all Democrats. Sorry,
right.
yes,
Yeah.
not all Democrats. So he wasn't in town, but there were some other Democrats who did vote at that point to continue to debate the bill. But it's unclear whether they would have supported the increase as it was. I'm thinking Mary Landrieu, Mark Warner. So not all Democrats are big fans of the 10-10 number or raising the tipped wage.
What is really, I think, an outrage is, for no matter where you stand on this issue, is we never got to the point of saying, okay, should it be 10-10 or maybe $9.50 or maybe $8.50 or whatever. We don't even have a debate on the minimum wage because of the filibuster. We could not even get enough Republicans and Democrats together, couldn't get enough senators to say, let's at least debate whether we should raise the minimum wage and how high it should go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
debate,
Republicans have also
insane.
Republicans have also charged, though, that look, you all didn't bring this bill through the committee. You didn't have a markup on this where we could have had a debate there. So Republicans from the beginning never believed that this was a serious policy discussion. They thought it was just politics. And I mean, on top of it, they are saying they don't believe in the policy. So.
All right. So let's talk about something else Republicans say. Let's talk about something new. Let's talk about Benghazi. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're going to hear that for the next 2 years. Elahe Izadi is here. We'll talk about a little Benghazi when we come back on the other side. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction,
America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
ABC correspondent Claire Shipman joins us in the next half hour to talk about her book on the confidence gap among women. You don't have the confidence gap, do you, Elahe?
Well, we don't need to discuss my
okay.
my gap or confidence. No, I have a confidence canyon. No, I'm fine. I'm doing all right.
We're going to, after we talk to Claire, we'll spend more time on Benghazi. But just tell us give us your quick take on Trey Gowdy, the man Boehner has named as chair of the select committee.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. We kind of knew this was coming. And he's known to be aggressive, a dramatic questioner. His some questions that he has at congressional hearings that they become kind of viral sensations on the right. So he can be very, as Speaker John Boehner put it, dogged. So expect some drama.
A former special prosecutor, right?
Yes, former federal prosecutor, from South Carolina.
All right, so there we go. More Benghazi. Claire Shipman coming up. We're here with Elahe Izadi. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour on a Tuesday, May 6th. Here in our nation's capital, on Capitol Hill, Elahe Izadi is here with us from the National Journal. We are talking the issues of the day. And Elahe wanted to, there was some little breaking news here over the week, overnight, which surprised me with kind of the boldness of it. And I'm looking for Elisa. She's busy on the phone here, so we can't get. Oh, all right. We're ready. We're ready to go.
Yeah, you want Conan?
Oh yeah, we got it. Okay, all right. So Conan O'Brien made the announcement, at least I had not heard before, about a change in the coaching staff out in Oregon. Here he is.
Michelle Obama's brother has been fired as the basketball coach at Oregon State. Yeah. And like most Americans who lost their job, he blames Obama. The one guy that can call him up. I blame Obama.
Right. So here's what I'm asking. Can you imagine anybody having the audacity, the gonads, right, to fire Michelle Obama's brother?
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, right.
Obama's America.
But you know,
I mean, yeah, it's.
I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting in the athletic department out there at the University of Oregon, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, but just being able to do that, and then you can tell your children and your grandchildren that you were bold enough to do such a thing.
I fired the first lady's brother.
Yeah, the president's brother-in-law.
I fired the president's brother-in-law.
Yeah, his kid's uncle. You can get like every type of family lineage, you know.
Right, and I'll tell you, when I see Michelle Obama, I wouldn't want to tangle with her, man. She could come out there and punch him out. Okay. Very important book that just out called The Confidence Code. The Confidence Code, The Science and Art of Self-Insurance, What Women Should Know. And in this month's Atlantic magazine, the cover is a book, Closing the Confidence Gap, a book by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, both of whom join us on our news line this morning with Elahe Izadi. Claire Shipman, of course, who is a correspondent for ABC News. You see her on GMA regularly, and Katty Kay, anchor for BBC America. Hello, Katty. Hello, Claire. Hello to you both. Good morning.
Good morning,
Hi, Bill.
My gosh, I didn't realize we're going to have the whole team here this morning. Right. So let me just, either one of you, where do we start? What did you find among this? When I see so many more and more successful women today in the Congress and in corporate America, why do you find this confidence gap among women? Who starts?
Patty, you start.
It's interesting, Bill, because I think a lot of women look around them and they see that there is a gap in their own confidence levels with the guys. They see men jumping in with questions at meetings, kind of, speaking loudest and longest, and they're thinking to themselves, is this just me? Is it just me that walks into a meeting and feels like a bit of an imposter or a bit of a fraud? And then actually what we found when you dig into the numbers is there really is a gap in confidence between men and women. Columbia University, for example, has just done the work on this, and they found that men routinely overestimate their ability by 30%. Hewlett-Packard has found that women will apply for a promotion when they have 100% of the skills required for a job. Men, they're happy with 60% of the skills required because guess what? They figure they're going to learn the rest when they get on the job anyway. And we've come up with numerous studies like that from academics and from corporations that have found that women are really holding themselves back, not because they lack talent, not because they lack ability. We have plenty of that, but because they lack confidence and they're somehow afraid of taking that next step. And that's why we really wanted not just to write about the confidence gap, but much more importantly, how to close the confidence gap.
Claire, do you find that in television among the women, the very successful women, including yourself, that you work with?
Yeah, it's funny because so many people say to us, well, but that can't be true. I work with so many successful women, so many confident women. They're all around me. And what really women can be successful, by the way, as can men, and not necessarily feel confident. And I think that's what really was so striking to us, was that there is this sense sometimes of being a fraud, but also, again, that women don't take the same risks that men will. We often feel that we need to be perfectly prepared, have everything perfectly ready to go before we will put our hands up and say, I can take on that assignment, I could do that, sure, why not, I'll try it. And I think absolutely yes, we hold ourselves to a higher standard, and I think what that means is that we often let opportunities slip by us.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, let me just give you one study we came across that was done by this fantastic professor called Zach Estes, who's at the moment at the University of Milan in Italy. He put men and women in front of a computer test. It was a spatial awareness test, and it looks a bit like a Rubik's Cube on a computer screen. And he asked them to solve a series of questions. The men came out significantly better than the women. So Professor Estes went back over the questions, and what he found was that actually the women were skipping a bunch of the questions. So he went back to them and he said, okay, this time around, you take the test again, but no one skips any questions. When they didn't skip the questions, the women did just as well as the men. And that's what we mean by holding ourselves back. We're not answering the questions.
Wow. Elahe?
Yeah, I had a question, actually. I'm wondering if, I read the Atlantic story, and what was really fascinating to me was how men are overconfident. So could you talk a little bit about that kind of overconfidence? Because
what are you talking about?
Bill's getting really defensive in here right now, by the way. No, I mean, and just how whether they actually believe that they can do things that they cannot do.
Well, this is what was interesting to us, because so many women will laugh, as we just did, and say, aha, I know that. We know those guys. But what we found is that, and I think Columbia University described it best, they said men often display what is an honest overconfidence. So it's not that they are they are using bravado on purpose to mask a sense that they don't know what they're doing. They actually do believe, in general, that they're more capable than they are. And so it's benign to some extent, and the fact is, when we got into this issue of competence versus confidence and what's more important, and Cameron Anderson out at Berkeley, a professor out there, did a remarkable study on the fact that shows that confidence in many cases is just as critical for success as competence. that really bothered us.
Yes.
That can't be true. In fact, in some cases, overconfidence is a good thing. But what he said is that the gap between your competence and your confidence can't be too big, right? So you can't just have an outsized view of what you can do, and it's not at all in line with reality. But what a little bit of overconfidence does for all of us is it propels us to act and to take risks and chances. And that's in some cases why, it's not a bad thing.
And also, I'm just wondering if some of the women you've been speaking with and doing in writing the book, if a lot of this confidence gap also has to do with the fact that these women are in fields and in operating in spaces where women are the minority, and they're kind of blazing a new trail in many ways. I mean, Bill mentioned women in Congress. It's a record number of women in Congress. It's 18.5%. That's still very low.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the factors behind the confidence gap. It's really a cocktail. Some of it is the way our brains are wired. That's very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is the way we are raised, and we still tend to push girls to be, the perfect good girls in school, even though we're telling them now they can be presidents and astronauts and CEOs. There is still a discrepancy in the way we treat our girls and our boys, and some of it is, like you've pointed out, the lack of role models. I went into a meeting the other day. It was a high-level executive meeting, and I was making a presentation on retaining female talent. And I looked around the room, and there's 14 men and 2 women. And I started to feel nervous and anxious, and I could tell that, I was wearing this pink silk shirt, which was a really stupid idea, of course, because then I started to sweat even more. And I looked around the room, and then I suddenly realized, you know what? It's totally normal for me in this situation to be feeling nervous. It's a high-level group of people. It's nearly all men. I am in the minority here. And in a way, just the recognition for me that it was okay to be nervous, and in fact, if I hadn't been nervous, I'd probably be some kind of robot, that helped me in that situation, because what you can't do is let those nerves stop you from acting, from asking the question, or walking across the room to meet the boss, or whatever it is that's hard for you. It's okay to be nervous. It's not okay not to act.
Again, we're talking with Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, authors of the new book, The Confidence Code, The Science and Art of Self-Assurance, What Women Should Know. And let me ask you both then, so you've had these findings, you documented, of course, back it up with the research done with these many studies around the globe. So what is the answer? I mean, what are your recommendations on how to fix it, particularly to women? Just be bolder and more assertive, and kind of take a lesson from men, and even if you don't know what you're talking about, pretend that you do? I see that all the time. But
yes, I mean, we have many recommendations. The first one is, I think, to become aware of what is going on. And one thing we've tried to do, because there are a lot of studies, but one thing we're trying to create is a confidence database, because confidence and gender has been looked at sometimes in a superficial way, but we've worked with some psychologists at Ohio State to create a confidence assessment that is, it's on our website, at theconfidencecode.com, and we've been stunned. By the way, we thought maybe 100 people, 1,000 people would take it. We've had more than 40,000 people take this thing since the book came out.
Yeah.
And that will give us a lot of information, but it will also let you know where you stand in terms of confidence compared to others. But really what's exciting about all this is that all of the new science shows that given what we know about brain plasticity, we really can change the way we think, even at our ages, Bill. We can still do it. And it's pretty straightforward. It has to do with risk-taking and failure and building up the sorts of experiences that let us remember, yes, all right, I mastered that. I can master this. And there's one other thing, too, for women especially, and that's dealing with a lot of the negative thoughts we have. Women have a much higher tendency to ruminate than men do and really remain stuck on sort of analyzing and overanalyzing, and in a way that can often get negative quickly. And getting that under control is also critical for confidence building.
Yeah. theconfidencecode.com is the place to go. Well, we thank you both for your time this morning. Thank you for doing the book, too. Again, it's The Confidence Code. We'll have a link up to the book on our website to make it easier for you to get. A book you should read, a book you should buy. And you can also get, of course, at all the regular places, your local bookstore, and on Amazon.com. Caddy and Claire, thank you for being who you are, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Bill and
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank you, and we'll be back with Elahe, a woman who has no lack of confidence at all.
Overconfident.
The overconfident Elahe, Izadi. That's the way you want to be.
Yeah, I should put that in my Twitter bio. Oh, the overconfident Elahe.
You know, be like a man. Fake it.
Yeah, totally. Fake it till you make it.
What?
Totally.
We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
This is the Bill Press Show.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, it's Tuesday, May 6th. Elahe Izadi from the National Journal, staff correspondent, here in studio with us. It's nationaljournal.com, where you can follow her work and the work of all of our good friends over there in many, many different fields. So I asked you about Trey Gowdy before. He is the man that from Georgia, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Sorry, South Carolina.
Down there somewhere.
Yeah, right. That John Boehner has asked to head this new select committee on Benghazi. All right, as Jay Carney pointed out yesterday, Elahe, there have been 13 hearings so far on Benghazi by 5 different committees. Why do we need another committee and another hearing?
Well, yeah, I mean, Republicans say that this new email that came out, I guess it was last week, the Rhodes email.
Ben Rhodes.
Yeah,
right.
Ben Rhodes. That this is a smoking gun or evidence that has not been out before that shows that the White House was involved in shaping the narrative or involved in some sort of cover-up. So that's why we need to do this. But, they're also doing this at a time. We're in the midterms right now. This will keep the issue, the select committee will keep the issue of Benghazi in the headlines for quite some time. And I don't think this is going to die even beyond 2014, even once this committee's done. Because if Hillary Clinton runs for president, you can be sure that Republicans are going to bring this up over and over again.
I know that's the Republican excuse for doing it, which I think is dumb and doesn't hold up. But it raises a couple of other questions.
Yeah.
With all these other committees that exist, and God knows Darrell Issa has been holding hearing after hearing after hearing on Benghazi. Last week he just subpoenaed John Kerry to testify without even extending the common courtesy of first inviting him. He just issued the subpoena. Doesn't it seem that John Boehner is sort of saying, I don't trust these other guys? I don't trust these other committees. I don't trust Darrell Issa. I have to appoint somebody else who is a member of John Boehner's committee, a Republican on his committee. I have to appoint somebody else to head another committee because these guys didn't do their job.
Yeah, I mean, it does raise that question of why do you need a separate committee specifically to delve into this issue? It definitely raises that question. And then also, I wonder if Democrats are going to choose to even participate.
That was my next question.
Yeah, sorry. I'm jumping
jumping
the gun there.
But you see, it does raise that question,
yeah,
too.
It does raise
Why
that
should
question.
they?
Well, the argument being that they should is that, look, if Democrats are not even in the room to even try to ask questions, then Republicans will be able to drive the entire narrative. They will call only their witnesses. There will be no witnesses from any other from the Democrats, and Democrats won't be able to question the witnesses that the Republicans have brought in and make the case and make their point. They will create a vacuum. So that's the argument for participating.
My argument for not participating is
lay it on me, Bill.
Expose it as the Republican phony committee that it is by putting no Democrat on the committee, and everybody will see this is just a bunch of Republicans playing politics, which is all it is. That's my feeling about it. And I'll tell you something. If I were Nancy Pelosi, I would not appoint one Democrat to that committee.
Yeah, and it's unclear
Let them sink on their own.
Yesterday, the lawmakers are coming back into town today. The minority whip, the Democratic whip, Steny Hoyer, met with some reporters yesterday, and he did not say whether Democrats were going to participate. He did say they're going to whip against the vote. The House has to vote to create this committee. It will be interesting to see whether they stage some sort of protest similar to when the House a couple summers ago held Eric Holder in contempt. They walked out. So if they do something dramatic that way, but Hoyer would not say whether Democrats are going to be involved at all.
We'll see, and it's fun to watch, particularly with you, Elahe. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Again, nationaljournal.com. I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Just a quick word about a horrific decision yesterday by the Supreme Court, ruling 5-4 that it's okay to start a city council meeting out with a prayer, a Christian prayer, because the majority ruled it's part of our national tradition to start meetings with a prayer. Well, that may be, but that still doesn't mean it's not wrong. That's what's wrong with religious conservatives and the Catholics on this court. They're trying to push their religion down everybody's throat and forcing everybody to pray to God before conducting public business. That is unconstitutional. Have a great Tuesday. See you back here again
Bill Press
tomorrow
Show.
morning.